wanted to get it right. Trying to find some balance in my life. I never really put up a fight. And now I'm losing sleep. What if I lost touch? What if I'll never get it right?
Welcome back. It's the Built by Vitality podcast. I'm Philip Lewis. Steve Pinkerton has a man cold, so he's not with us today, but I got this. We have two guests, Britt Lucas and Jonathan Lucas. Britt was a member at the gym for, I think you just said 6 years, right? It's been a little while. Not crazy, maybe a year you haven't been here, you said?
Yeah, probably.
And we have them on today. They do tons of cool stuff, from remodeling houses, flipping houses, I guess real estate, Airbnb. How many kids you have?
Two.
So they have a lot going on. So I'm gonna let Britt tell us a little bit about herself, how she even found the gym. She's been doing real estate 12 years, you said.
Yeah.
And just kind of get into it, and then how y'all met and started this together.
Yeah. Honestly, the real estate thing and the gym almost even go hand in hand. So I was just working for a nonprofit, not making any money. And I was flying back and forth.
Did you enjoy it?
I loved it.
You liked it? You just didn't make money?
So much fun. It was just hard, like, right when you come out of college. It's just tricky. It was a tricky time. And so this guy was like, gosh, you should come sell real estate with me in Charlotte, North Carolina. Well, I had just gone through a foundations class for CrossFit.
Okay.
And
was this at the old spot? Or just somewhere else?
Back in Colorado.
Okay.
Yeah, so I just finished foundations, and I was like, oh gosh, but I can't imagine leaving this really cool gym that I just figured out. But thankfully Vitality was in Concord, and actually I could have lived anywhere in Charlotte, but it was one of the only gyms that I found that was like a CrossFit gym whenever I Googled when I was looking to move here. And I was like, okay, looks like Perfect. I'm going to move to the Concord area because there's this gym called CrossFit Vitality. Yeah. And that's
how was that when you walked in? Did you walk in and who was the first interaction? Yeah, was it Steve?
Yeah,
Laura,
Steve
Jess?
was there. Laura was there. Jenny was there, I think.
It's crazy to think how long some of these people have been here. Obviously Steve and Jess, but all the coaches we talk about a lot, some of these members and stuff have been since the old spot began. It's crazy. And you just you walked in and some of those same people interacted, met with you.
Yeah.
That's cool.
So it was at the old spot, and there actually used to be a little rig in the corner. And I went and did foundations. Yeah. It was like a one-on-one course.
Who'd you have to do it with? Do you remember?
I don't remember. No, he's not here anymore.
Okay. It's okay, that's fine. I was just hoping it wasn't Steve. That'd be terrible.
It wasn't Steve.
Okay.
No, that would have been
I'm glad you came back after doing foundations with Steve.
That would have been so tricky. Yeah, and I loved it. Actually, my first workout was Fran.
Oh my gosh, and you kept coming.
I kept coming. Well, it was so funny. So it was actually Jess was the coach, and she gave me the 25-pound training bar, and everyone else around me had weights on, and I was like, surely I can do this. It doesn't really look that hard. And it took me 7 minutes with the 25-pound training bar and the biggest pull-up strap, the big black one. So help me do the pull-ups. And I'm like, okay, I need to keep
Maybe
coming.
I need to keep coming.
I'm not that strong.
Yeah. First time I ever did CrossFit, I think it was me and an older lady, and she was pregnant at the time. And we did our first little class with Jason over at Northlake. And I never forget, she was pregnant, and I don't mean pregnant just found out. She was about to have the baby pregnant. And she lapped me twice. I said, oh my God, I just got lapped twice by this pregnant lady, this about to have the kid. And she never signed up. I signed up that day.
Oh my
Still to this day, I think Jason had some lady dressed up like a pregnant suit just to get people to join. But yeah, so I understand.
To crush their egos, yeah.
So you kept coming back, right? And then what about the real estate? You started doing that in Charlotte, you said?
Yeah, so I started off just selling new homes in Concord, Charlotte, Harrisburg area, some different communities. Loved it. Especially starting out, it was really fun. I think that's what gave me the real estate bug, but I knew that I wanted to build really cool things. So long story short, I ended up going back to grad school for finance, because it was the finance people that were the ones calling all the big shots and stuff like that. And it was the side of the business that I really didn't know. I loved the marketing, and I loved talking to people. And I loved that whole side, but I didn't understand the numbers component, and I knew I was falling short in that area. So got my graduate degree in real estate finance, and then I went into the private equity world, so developing like really big apartment complexes and
That's really
things
cool.
uptown, like Sky House. I worked on that project a little bit, and like some things down in the Montford Park area.
Yeah.
And I got to do some really cool big
is really cool.
projects. But all along the way, I was still investing myself in real estate. So just like
Okay.
buy one rental property a year, do a couple of like small fix and flips, have like an Airbnb here and there. So I was trying to like implement and learn some of the processes
Yeah.
that I was learning from like the big corporate developers that I was working
You're
for.
taking like the big back end stuff you were learning and is applying it to little things you were doing along the way.
Yeah,
it helped.
especially like young 20s. I mean,
Oh, yeah,
I,
you're
I
like,
could
I don't
only
know what to
buy
do.
like these little condos and things like that, but I was still able to learn and
Yeah.
grow and like at least try to apply it to my own life. So.
Okay. That's really cool. How many
Yeah.
properties probably did you fix and flip during this time? Like, did you, like, what was your first that you bought and you're like, oh my God, I just paid this for that and I got to fix this up?
The
It's-
first house I got I was 20 and it was $112,000 and I bought it July 5th, like right after. I just remember like coming back from the July 4th holiday and being like, okay, I have to write my name like a million times on this very
Oh
important
my gosh.
document, and this is absolutely terrifying. But it all worked out.
That's
so
really cool.
I'm grateful for that.
That's
yeah,
cool.
I didn't know what I was doing.
Think about that though. You were 20 doing
Yeah.
that. Like, there's people I know that haven't done anything like that, especially buying it to fix it up, flip it or anything till their
Yeah.
40s or later. Like
Yeah.
you did it at 20.
Yeah,
That's
that's
while
really
you're working
scary.
and stuff. That's a lot.
Yeah, but then we ended up meeting, and so like I didn't know what I was doing on the construction side, and
Like when
I
you were
didn't.
fixing things up and stuff or trying to.
yeah, so I didn't do a lot of like the hands-on fix
Yeah.
things. I tried to learn as much about the construction process as possible, but like slinging a hammer, that's
like, "No,
not
I'm
my
not."
thing necessarily. You don't want that. I'm not.
Y'all could be on like HGTV or something and have your own little show. That'd be really cool.
And Jonathan's always been handy, and so then we met 2017.
Something like that.
Yeah, I think it was 2017 that we met. And he was always very handy, and like he's more mechanical. And I'm like, well, I have these projects.
Oh yeah.
You're like, oh,
It'd be so fun.
Does she really like me, or is she using me for
using
my
me?
hammer,
Yeah.
like so I can go fix all of her stuff?
5 years later, still using me. but
Okay, that's
we'll see.
right. That's okay.
Also for his good looks.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. Oh gosh. So when y'all met, how many? Or did you have more properties at this time, or are you still kind of just doing the real estate thing, working on learning the back end of the big businesses, and kind of got the one or two, and y'all met, or did you have a lot going on, and you're like, hey, I got all this stuff. You want to help?
Yeah, it was just a couple at a time, but around that time, the market had really started to pick up, and so there were so many more opportunities than I really
Yeah.
knew what to do with, especially because my potential was kind of capped as it related to the construction side.
Yeah.
And certainly timing too, because so much of my time like was spent in the corporate world, and finance is kind of known to suck up a lot of your time.
Yes.
And long story short, like we ended up doing an Airbnb together, and I think that was like
Where's that at?
The
Where was
first
your
one.
first one?
Plaza Midwood,
Really? That's cool. I didn't even think like how long ago was that? Probably.
2017.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You still have that one, or did you get rid of it, or
No.
just did y'all own that, or did you do what we were talking about earlier, the arbitrage thing, where you just leased it from somebody and they let you sublease it on Airbnb?
That was an arbitrage.
Okay.
However, most apartment complexes don't let you do that anymore.
Yeah, so I've-
2017 was like the start of Airbnb, so
Yeah.
there were no.
People didn't really know.
People didn't know what that was. Hey,
Yeah.
can I sublease this on a website, Airbnb? People's like,
Yeah.
I don't know if we can do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And at first it was okay, and then they started figuring out about it, and they're like, I don't think we really like this. But the reality is, and what people have learned since then, is that most of the people running the Airbnb in that rental, they're taking better care of your unit than anybody else would, because
Yeah.
it's being cleaned every couple days.
Yeah, there's
People are
somebody
in and
always
out.
in there.
Yeah, and it's
Yeah.
they're not comfortable enough to mess anything up, or they're not in there long enough to mess
Yeah.
anything up. So a lot of people are getting way more comfortable with that idea.
The other thing that we did to, I guess, swoon the apartment complex at the time is we would give people like the leasing information. So people would come and stay at the Airbnb because they're planning to relocate to Charlotte. So we're like, oh
Yeah.
gosh, actually, this is a really wonderful apartment complex. Here's the leasing gal's information. You should go down, talk to her. If you love this apartment, you can actually lease one yourself.
Yes.
And
That's really cool.
got them some leases, and
Man.
they left
She
this
already
alone.
did what I was thinking about doing.
Yeah, do it.
So when y'all found that place, so a lot of people don't know what Airbnb arbitrage is. So essentially, somebody else owns the property, and say they want X amount of money for it a month. They just agree to let y'all sublease that on Airbnb, and anything you make past your expenses and whatever that costs per month to that landlord or whoever owns it, you keep the difference or save it in case something happens.
Yeah.
But in general, did y'all like furnish the place? You furnished it, you pay the amenities, you do all the cleaning. The cleaning thing to me has always been interesting, because I was thinking about this recently. If I got a place at the beach or Nashville, wherever, who do I call and be like, do you set up like a contract with somebody and say, hey, every time this books or somebody checks out, do I have to call them, or do they just know? Do they have access to my Airbnb account? How does that work?
So you have a lot of property management companies that will run these Airbnbs, these short-term rentals for you.
Okay.
Obviously, there's a lot more in beach areas where
Yep.
it's super common. You don't see it as much, in the middle of nowhere, which a lot of those middle of nowhere properties are becoming more popular. Like, we love the idea of going out in the middle of nowhere, staying at a farmhouse for a couple of weeks and just living there and enjoying it.
Yep.
But you'll see a lot of these property management companies that will take care of everything for you.
And they just say, hey, I'll manage this for you for, 10, 15, whatever percent of what you make a month off of that or something,
Yeah.
essentially?
So I actually like more of like the straight line ones. Those might be more like 20%, but
Yeah.
they actually will like buy all the linens for you, and they will wash all the linens and all those things. If you look at someone that's more like a 10%, yeah, it's a 10% fee off gross revenue, by the way.
Yes.
It's a little rich.
Different.
But then they'll say, oh, well, we have to buy linens for you every year, and that's a $300 fee, or you have to pay for the cleaning supplies. Like, they might have some additional fees.
Okay.
So that would be my only advice on that. And
I
that
was
first
worried
one,
about that. I was like, man, do I have to go down there and clean it every other day? Like, what do I do?
No.
I didn't know, because like the company in Charlotte, like Molly Maids or that company, like, do you call them? I don't know who does that. So
Yeah.
you run it. It's essentially your Airbnb, but you have a company that you'll find and one that you're okay with, and their fees and stuff, and just let them handle it. It just takes all the stress out of it, I guess.
the ones that we own, we definitely always have a property manager. That first one we arbitraged, we were scrappy, and we even did all the cleaning ourselves.
Oh, man.
Do not recommend.
It allows you to scale. So, I mean, if you're doing a lot of properties, the last thing you need to be worrying about is
running back and forth cleaning,
back and forth. What sheets do I have on the bed?
Oh, my gosh.
Who's checking
That
in
stresses
there?
me out thinking about it. I'd probably definitely have one of those companies just for one.
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm not going over there.
Yeah, it's
I
a
need to
lot.
let them do it. Well, that's really cool. So when she met you, what were you doing at the time? Were you just working for corporate America, had your own business, or?
Not even close. I
You're
was
like, nope. Actually, I was doing nothing. She took care of me.
Pretty much doing nothing. No, I was living in a camper on an airport in the middle of nowhere, jumping out of airplanes for a living.
You were living in a camper and just jumping out of airplanes.
Yeah.
Military or something, or was it just
just recreation for the most part, working for the company that.
So you're living the life, man. That's pretty cool.
Yep.
So you're like skydiving and living in a camper in an airport.
And you got this girl that owns multiple properties decides to start dating a guy that owns a camper.
Well,
Did you go skydiving with it?
Heck yes, I did. Well, so
Okay.
I always wanted an Airstream. That was like my dream. Even as a kid, I was like, oh my gosh, this
My
is so
shiny
cute.
Airstream.
And so I meet him, and he's like, yeah, I live in a camper. And literally, like, my eyes lit up. I'm like, this is my dream, man.
Oh my gosh, he lives in what I want. He skydives and he's good with like building things. I need him. Yes.
Yeah, I wasn't interested in skydiving at first, but he just kept talking about it, and it was evident that he loved it so much.
Yeah.
And
Had to try it.
yeah, naturally, like, especially if you really care about someone, you like want to experience what it is that they love. So I'm like, all right, I'll do it once, but it's amazing, and I like kept going.
Did you do it so frequently and like you could just strap her to you, the kind of thing, or did y'all just kind of go together but y'all are separate?
Yeah,
first
so
time?
my job in skydiving, not my full-time at the time when we met, but what I did a lot of as backup was shoot video. So the last thing I wanted to do when I started skydiving was make a job out of skydiving. Yeah. Because it was so much fun. I don't want to ruin this thing that I love for myself, But I did love shooting video. Whether it was a fun jump or whether it was following a tandem or something. But also the last thing I wanted to do was have somebody strapped to me that's trying to kill me. So did not do tandems. But when she went, she was actually one of the first videos that I followed. So first tandems that I followed
Really?
and shot video of.
So you were tandem and you were solo, but you made the video for her to jump or
I would
whatever.
go out, I would fly around her in free fall, like grab her hand,
That's
spin
really
around.
cool.
So
Yeah, that is awesome.
Yeah. But then I really liked it. And I was like, gosh, do I just like it because my boyfriend likes it?
And he has a camper.
Yeah. And I didn't want to like take the fun either. Because I'm like, well, what if on days that he's jumping, he just like wants bro time, you know?
Yeah.
But then I kept thinking about it and I kept wanting to go. And so maybe like 3 or 4 months later, then I went and got my license. And I'm obviously still not as good as him. But
I've never been.
I try to keep
I
up.
keep telling myself every year, I'm like, just go do a jump. And then I'm like, I'll do it next time.
Let's
I never go. Yeah, I
We'll
would
take
though.
you.
It's fine. I don't mind height. Well, I say that until you probably look out of the plane. Everybody's like, it don't bother me. And then you're over the edge. And I'm like, oh, and you have to push me. But I usually do like stuff at the beach, the slingshots and roller, like all that stuff don't bother me. So I think I'd be okay.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
if you can do that stuff, you can go skydiving.
That stuff
Okay.
is way scarier.
yeah.
That's somebody told me the other day. They're like, I went skydiving for the first time. They're like, you'll be fine. They tell you it's
be
like
fine.
you're not even falling. And I was like, well, how was? They were like, they're full of crap. I felt like I was falling. And they were like, I'm not going back. I was like, okay. But I think this person's scared of heights. So, but they went. Well, that's cool. So when y'all met and y'all started skydiving, and this is in Colorado, right?
No,
Oh,
this
we're
is
in Charlotte.
You're in Charlotte now.
Yeah.
When y'all met, and you were around here doing that. Where were you at?
It's in South Carolina.
Okay,
So-
cool. So there's a skydiving place in
Chester,
what's the name of that one?
Skydive Carolina.
That one, and there's another one, Carolina something, right? That's in
Piedmont.
North Carolina.
We have Piedmont, North Carolina. There is a Carolina skydiving
That
in
one or
South
something.
Carolina.
Okay.
It's a little bitty drop zone. The one I was at, it's a pretty big drop zone. We operate some larger aircraft.
Okay.
And we throw a lot of jumpers out of airplanes.
Great. Won't go to that one. So after this is going on, did you move into his camper and you're like, this is mine? Or did y'all like, you said, hey, you're coming with me?
Yeah, we loved camper life. So we did that like our first year of marriage. And
Really?
had
Did
so
you
much
just
fun.
stay there at that place?
Yeah,
Or did y'all?
for a while. And so what we ended up doing is we bought a house
Yeah.
that we could flip. So we moved out of the camper, still
Okay.
skydiving during this flip, working on this house, come home from jumping, start working on the
Working
camper
on-
or the
okay.
house. And that took us,
like a year.
yeah, it took us a while.
Yeah.
Mostly
It's
because
the
I was,
first one.
yeah, first one, I had a lot to learn. And I knew that
Oh,
going
yeah.
into it. Like, this is basically, I'm doing this as my education.
Yeah,
So
this is
since
your
I didn't-
college
yeah,
right
I
here.
didn't go to
Like, you're going to
college.
have to, yeah.
So
okay.
let's pay for this house. If we make money on it, even better. You know,
Okay.
we can see how we feel about it, what we want to learn. It's like, I really love designing things and building things and doing this stuff. And this is a great
Yeah, that's
opportunity
cool.
to learn.
I don't think people realize how much goes into that. That's why it's cool to hear how y'all did this. So if you're in a camper, y'all get in the house and you're like, hey, let's fix this up, flip it, whatever. You're kind of living in that and the camper a little bit, depending on what you're working on at the time, maybe.
For
Like, we're working on the bedroom, let's sleep in the camper. But if you sell that house or flip it, you're like, oh, we're back in the camper.
well, for a month or two.
Like,
Yeah.
For
right?
a month or two, we had both, and then we got rid of the camper, and so we were just in the house. We basically
Okay.
burned the ships at that point.
Okay.
Quite literally.
Okay.
And so we ended up, I think, so we also got pregnant while we owned that house, and we had our first child in that
There's a lot
house.
going
And,
on.
Yeah, basically the day before she left the hospital, I gutted the kitchen down to the floor joist. So we had a newborn in the house with no kitchen. The unique part about this house was
my
too the room we were living in that we did not gut, that was separated from the rest of the house by the kitchen. And so you actually, to get to the living room,
Yeah.
while the floor was gone, you had to walk outside around to the front door. So
Yeah.
She's like, yeah, what was I thinking?
But honestly, it's so sweet because it's like you're going through it and you're like, oh my gosh, like I have a newborn, and then the changing table is up at the front of the house. You have to walk outside of the house, like get to where all the diapers are. And at that age, they're going through diapers like every 5 minutes. But at the same time, it's like, it's always a story that we talk about, you
Yeah,
know, like
that's
whenever we
kinda
talk
cool,
about our
yeah.
real estate journey, like even then I just remember giggling so much because it's like, this is so fun that we get to work together as a family. We get to
Mm-hmm.
learn something together. And honestly, like now I know that we can do anything because nothing's ever going to be as hard as like bringing a newborn home.
Yeah.
with no kitchen
floors.
and no floors. Like, honestly,
that's
we were grilling out even for breakfast.
Oh, yeah.
We
For a
were
couple
just,
months.
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh,
We had
got a
the
pan on
fridge.
there, but putting eggs and stuff on the grill, right? Yeah, that's
Yep.
awesome. So
Yeah.
after you got through that and you had floors and stuff again, sold the house. Did you buy? Are you in a house finally now, or the one you were in after this one, or have you been in multiple that's like back and forth? You're like, we're going to buy this one. This is ours, and you're like, actually, let's sell it. We can do another one. How long has that taken place? Multiple years, or
we've
did it
decided
stop?
now that like we do need a solid home base, especially with two
Okay.
little ones.
Yes.
And we enjoy having them at home.
Okay.
And that doesn't really work great with a construction site and two littles. But we do continue to buy new investment properties and like work on new things.
Yep.
And then Jonathan has even like become more of a niche. So like, yes, we still do all of those things, but he's found like what he's really passionate about, just specializing in woodworking, cabinetry, furniture making.
And you found
Things
that
like
out
that.
by
Doing
not having
everything.
floors and doing all that stuff. You're like, boy, out of all that stuff, I really enjoyed these two.
Yes.
Okay, that's cool.
Correct.
You found it on accident.
Yeah, for the most part, yeah. I mean, I like, kind of said, but I like the design process. I like
Yep.
making unique things. We like, our Airbnbs and stuff. We want to be more unique, and so that mostly stems from wanting cool stuff.
Is
And I
your
like-
goal to have a certain amount of Airbnbs? Is there a certain amount you have now and you're trying to increase that? Like,
Yeah, I would say so. Our main goal as a family would be to have enough, or 3 or 4 different Airbnbs, like one in the mountains, one at the
Yep.
beach, one in the middle, and a couple other different ones that we can bounce around throughout the year, live in for a couple months, move
While
on,
the
and make
other ones are
money.
renting out, right?
Make money
And
the
it's
rest of the
also-
time.
It's partially about the money, but it is very true of like, we would like to have these curated spaces that other families can be in.
Yep.
And what are some other places that families similar to us would have an interest in? What can they make family memories in? Those are the places we want to go after.
Yeah.
Build something really unique and special. Yes, be able to make some money off of it as well, and also just give other families like that sweet space that they
And you
can't
have that
necessarily
like
get.
with your kids. So when you're at that spot, you're like, okay, what all do we need? Because they're going to need the same thing. What do they enjoy? They're going to enjoy they need their own space. We need our space. So
Yeah.
you can put that in each of your properties. Because when I'm on Airbnb and I mostly look, most of the ones I see, if I just want to go somewhere for a week, weekend, whatever, they're small. They're like, hey, 2-3 guests, 1 bedroom. It's not really for a family. Most of the ones that I pay attention to
Yeah.
or look at. But there's definitely a special need for that. There's tons of families that go Airbnb all the time, but I don't think I see that as much. Like if
Yeah.
I literally type in Nashville on Airbnb, it's like, oh, downtown, studio, 300 square feet. I'm like, who's going? You can't put a lot of people in that.
Yeah, or you
So
might as well
need-
stay at a hotel at that rate.
Yeah, that's what I'm
Yeah.
saying. So that's really cool. That's unique that y'all want to have all them different places. But I like the idea you're saying of, hey, we could live at the beach for a couple months, rent these out, and you're like, it's getting cold.
Yeah.
Let's go to the
Let's get outta
mountains
here.
or at this one or whatever.
Yeah.
I really like that. So I think you found out you enjoyed the cabinets and making furniture and all that. So what do you do with that now? You started your own business just doing that.
Yep. So a lot of
While she's doing real estate still, right?
Yeah, most of the opportunity to figure out, try it out and say I really liked it. In theory,
Yeah.
I liked it, but I got to try it out is through doing the cabinetry and doing the other finishing work in our own properties. Because originally, yes, I was doing, all the work inside the house myself, give or take a couple of things like some of the portions of electrical.
Yeah.
But I was also ordering cabinets, and I was like, you know what? Like, there's not much to these things in reality compared to what I'm already doing. Like, what if I try building these myself? And that's kind of where it went. And I'm like, wow, actually, this is really cool. And that is, in my opinion, especially before I even touched a house, was like, that was the peak of being a woodworker, was doing cabinetry. And I'm sure somebody will argue that point. Maybe I will. Like, I've seen some beautiful stuff, but it really is. It's like, that's the part of the house where like somebody special has to build that.
Yeah.
Or a machine builds it in some cases.
Or custom, because I know there's a ton of like cookie cutter neighborhoods that go up all the time, and I do not enjoy those. I don't like those. You literally are on top of somebody.
Yeah.
They all look the same. They might be flipped,
Yep.
But they're the same.
Yep, all the
And they
flips
just
look the
mass
same.
order the cabinets, throw this stuff in there, whatever. I'd much rather have a custom thing, a custom home, and I'm like, hey man, I want you to make this for me.
Yep, and you
it
can
makes
tell.
it more home. You can tell a difference
You
for
can
sure.
tell, and even your white shaker cabinets look different if they're custom.
Yeah,
and it's still the same
100%.
finish. You know, so that's what I like. Is like I want to make this custom and I want to make this unique, and that's, to me, in my opinion, that is the peak of like doing that stuff yourself.
Do you have your own little spot, like your own shop and all that stuff? Where
Yeah.
do people find you? Like, are you just kind of word of mouth right now, or do you promote things, or?
We're in the process of all this. It's so one of the last renovations we did, that's the first house I did all the cabinetry for.
Yep.
And so that's where I was like, all right, we got to get rolling. And even during buying that house, I was like, man, I want to get rolling with doing cabinetry and stuff. And I kind of got cut off from setting up the website and creating the logo and doing all that stuff because of working on that house. But it also gave me some content too and something to show for. So it's probably helped me in creating a good foundation.
Yeah.
But we're in the process of getting all that stuff done. And I've been,
That's really
I've been
cool.
doing this for a little while, as in the cabinetry stuff, not forever, but a little while.
Yeah.
So it's fun to see it actually turning into something.
Yeah. So like if you're still doing when you're doing real estate, that can kind of go towards his stuff, right? So I'm sure you find tons of people that like, hey, Britt, I really like this house. I think we're going to go with this one, but God, I got to get some of these cabinets and stuff out of here. This is terrible. I'm going to update it a little bit. And you're like, oh, I know a guy.
Yeah.
And then he can do that, right?
Yeah, they definitely go hand in hand. But part of our issue is like really and truly, Jonathan is really talented at all the trades.
Yeah.
And so I've made the mistake where, yes, I'm like either working with a client or even on my own deals, like I trust him so much more than I trust anybody else that I can possibly call in. And like, yes, we have a whole Rolodex and we have great relationships with a lot of trades, but at the end of the day, like I really value his opinion. And so I always refer him out even for non-cabinet jobs, or I ask for his help, like, oh, hey, can you come do this electrical? Because I know you'll do it, right?
Yeah.
And obviously he's a little cheaper than hiring out for me, not for the people.
Don't ask.
Just to be clear. And so
He gives you a discount, right? Okay,
yeah,
good.
but unfortunately that has really, I think that's just something that you have to learn when husbands and wives are working together, of like, you know, he's so passionate about the woodworking.
We'll get into
And
that in a second.
So I need to slow my role of really relying on some of the other trades that I know do an awesome job as well, and giving him the space and the time to do what he's passionate about, instead of always pulling him away to be like, oh, will you go change this toilet at a tenant's house? Because I do ask him to do that. And obviously, like, he is a craftsman and he's like really good at his trade, and I should probably be asking somebody else to do that.
It's okay. All right. So she brought it up, working husband and wife. How does that go? Like, I would imagine, like, I work with tons of guys down here at the gym, whatever. Even at my old job when I was at Budweiser, nothing but guys mainly. If I said, hey, man, what would it be like if your wife worked here too? They would freak out. They'd be like, no, I would get another job. We cannot do that. And you're like, hey, let's work together. Like, how does that go? I'm sure it's up and down, right? Or is it pretty straightforward?
Where to start?
Well, I definitely think, like, kind of what I was sharing earlier is, okay, also to be clear, we dated for 6 months.
That was a little bit longer. Less than a year.
Yeah, it was less than a year. It was not like a substantial time even before we got married.
Yeah.
And we basically like jumped right in. Like, we got the arbitrage house, the Airbnb arbitrage house, when we were still dating. We had maybe known each other like 2 or 3 months, and we're like, oh, let's do this.
And we were
all that
already
to
talking
say-
about buying stuff too. Like,
Really?
hey, can we do this while we're dating?
Yeah, but like, so we've learned so much about each other through the process. We didn't start the business when we already had 10 years together and like really able to build the unity. But I think that now at this point, 4 years in, I do think that like we're hitting a good stride of understanding what each other's strengths are, what we're good at, boundaries,
Yeah.
like roles and responsibilities in a really healthy way.
Yeah, it was difficult to start with, and it's still difficult to this day in some sense, but her and I both hold each other to a really high standard, and we're not afraid to have the hard conversations that we need to have. And it almost makes it, like, just because we live with each other and we're constantly together, it almost makes it easier in some sense, because it would be harder for me to go up to an employee that I don't live with and have that hard conversation of like, hey, I'm not really happy with your performance on this.
Yeah.
You know, now I can, like, we're sitting there on the couch watching TV and we can talk about this with our kids.
Like,
you know,
wife, I'm not really happy with
yeah,
you.
and
Like,
we have
what?
those conversations.
I think I'd rather say to an employee, not my significant other,
Yeah.
like, hey, you sucked today.
You did
like,
terrible.
what are you talking about? No, that's cool. So, y'all, how many properties do you currently have that are maybe that you're working on for flips? Is there any currently that you're working on?
We are not flipping currently.
Yet,
Yes.
currently.
If we find,
Here, look, if something worth it, right?
yes,
Okay.
but as I'm sure you're hearing just all over the place, is the margins are really
Yeah.
shrinking on
Oh, yeah.
flips.
Yeah.
There's still money to be made, and if you really want to do it, you will find a way.
Yes.
People can do it.
Yeah.
Yes, it's just that.
The market's crazy right now. Houses
crazy.
that I see are
Crazy.
insane.
You've got unrenovated houses selling for $20,000 more than, or $20,000 less than a renovated house, and it's like, how do you physically make money on that when you have to put $30,000 into that house to
Yeah.
get it to a functional point? And the trouble for us too, or for me for that matter, is I like nice things. I like doing things well. I like building the cool cabinetry. And so I go into a house and I'm like, I want to do this. I want to do that. I want to build this really cool kitchen. And she's
Yeah.
like,
And then I'm building the model on the back end, and I'm like, that sounds really lovely, but
sounds
this
really-
neighborhood cannot support your $100,000 cabinet.
Oh my gosh.
can't do
You're like,
that.
if you open this cabinet, it takes you into another room. You know, I'm like, what?
yep.
I imagine stuff like that too. I'm like, man, it'd be cool just to walk in your kitchen, open a cabinet, and it's got some food stuff in there, some spices. Then you open another cabinet, and you can kind of
You can walk on through.
walk through somewhere else. It'd be
Yeah.
really cool. So
Yeah.
if you're not doing that currently, right now is mainly, like you said, Airbnbs at different places. And those Airbnbs, are you mainly going to try to do that arbitrage? You're going to be like, no, I'm going to buy this, and that's going to be our property.
I think so. Next phase would be one, growing out the carpentry business to a place where like it has I don't know, just really great properties that
Yep.
are on the horizon for it. And then also we like the idea of multifamily, and so rather than buying more like single family rentals, we would like to start buying some bigger assets. So whether it's like self-storage, apartment complexes, things like that that are just a little
Duplexes and
larger.
things where it's multiple. Okay.
Yeah, and probably even bigger than duplexes, really. Yeah, like a whole apartment complex would be a dream. So we're on the lookout for things like that. And then from an impact perspective and just like special projects, it is the Airbnbs. And those, even more so than just buying, we want to be the ones to develop.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we would like to find, which is what we're working on. And so those projects take a little bit more time for sure
Yeah.
than like the quick flips. But finding a really nice piece of land that we could do something special on and
Building
have it like a unique curated experience.
Building and designing a unique house or home for
That's
people
really
to
cool.
then use on Airbnb.
Do y'all help people? Like, say if I was like, hey, I told you I got a piece of land. It's been sitting there forever. It's got a house that's about to fall apart on there. God, where do I start? Like,
We
do you
love that.
counsel people on that stuff? Or like, hey,
Always.
come over, we'll talk about it. Do y'all do that?
Yeah, I would say at least once or twice a week we're at a pal's house.
Okay.
Yeah.
He's crawling into the crawl space.
Oh my gosh.
We love.
I'm like figuring out how much things are going to cost them.
The part of the reason I found that I love cabinetry and furniture is because I found out that I didn't love crawling in crawl spaces and attics.
Oh
So,
my gosh.
so it's like it was the
I don't
lesser
think
of
I
two
could do
evils.
that. Yeah, I couldn't do that either, man.
So like I have all this knowledge and all these different things, and these skill sets. Some of them I enjoy doing, but
Yeah.
it's tough. But I do love teaching. I love helping people out. I mean, like she said, we're in somebody's house once a week at least. Like, hey, you should do this if you want to. Let me know if you need help. Let me know if you need to borrow my tools. Let me know if you need to come into the shop and work on something. Like, we love teaching people. I love being able to share this interest, this love that we have, mostly on my side of actually working on things. And she does the same thing in the financial side of like, hey, this is probably the type of loan you should get. Have you heard of this bank before?
That's what I need.
Yeah.
I feel like the banks now are like, I guess with, pandemic and prices and whatever, every bank I haven't talked to a bank in maybe a year or more. The ones I talked to, I kind of got a little upset. I was like, I'll just wait. They would be like, oh, so you want X amount of money? And I'm like, yeah. And they'll say, well, I'd like to see that amount of money in your savings account. And I'm like,
Well, then why do I need you?
why am I calling? This don't make any sense.
I know.
was so stressed out. Steve come in here and he's like, it was random. He bust the door open like it's a whatever. He's a cop or something. He's like, what are you doing? It's time to go work out. And I'm like, I'm not working out today. He's like, what is wrong? And I said, I just got a phone at the bank and whatever. He's like, leave him alone. Don't talk to him right now. Just stop.
Yeah.
A lot of crap going on. Just get down here, work out, everything will be better. I was like, okay. But they're basically, if you want, say, 200,000, they're like, well, you need to have 190 in the bank. I said, what is this?
Yep.
So, yeah, maybe I need to talk to somebody like you that understands more of that. Because that's all I would kind of get from places lately.
They don't teach that stuff in school these
They
days. So.
don't tell you that. Even when obviously when I was there, now it's probably even worse. You don't know any of that stuff until you do it.
Yeah.
And somebody like yourself that did it at 20, I'm sure you probably could help people a little bit more than if I just called and talked to a bank, somebody over the phone. Like,
Yeah.
you probably have more knowledge on that.
Yeah, but also we have relationships too. You
Yes.
know, like I have some lenders that I love to work with for different things. And I also have a list of lenders that I know their character and their reputation, and I think their product is great. Even if I personally haven't used it,
Yeah.
I still have, you know, relationships with them.
Yeah.
And so I always just trying to figure out, well, what is the goal? And then who is the best lender to partner with
Yeah.
on that
you
particular
match it
deal.
with, okay.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So, but if I was like, hey, I'd love to get a hold of y'all, and I need you to come look at my shack.
Let's go.
I need
Let's
you to
walk
fix
it.
this thing. I need you to please hook me up with a lender. Tell me how much this one costs. How would I get a hold of y'all? Is there a website? You said you're working on one currently.
Yeah,
Right?
I mean, you can find us on the gram for now.
The gram?
Yeah,
Especially for that type of stuff. You know?
For
yeah,
that type of
especially stuff
stuff.
like that. That really
But
is.
if I just wanted some, like, if I'm remodeling my house, I say, hey, man, I love your carpet. Like, I love all your stuff that you do. I don't need you to go under my house or in my attic. I just need you on the inside, making it really nice and
Yep.
custom. How would I reach you? It's the same thing, the gram, or?
So for now, and really the main reason that we wanted to chat with you is so
Yeah.
that we could talk through some of the branding stuff. So like Jonathan's website is almost done.
Yeah.
And then you would just be able to find him on there.
What are we
Okay.
naming it?
It's Cold Hands Woodworks. I should say that again. probably.
I can put that in the link and everything for coming soon, but click here or whatever. That'd be really cool to get that up and running. But for you, I would just go to your Instagram and be like, hey, can I have $200,000? Because everybody else told me no.
Yeah, honestly,
like-
you can reach out to me because it's not even necessarily a business thing. It's just something that
You enjoy, right?
I remember whenever I was not even just getting my first house, like every house has its own nuances
Yep.
as you're going through the purchasing and acquisition process. Like every single one is different. And if I can help somebody else get into the deal that they want and, you know, better their finances or have that dream house or whatever, like people want real estate for different reasons, like
Yeah.
whatever that is, then I'm always glad, you know, to
Yeah.
help. And really in that, a lot of times I end up learning even more. It's like one more transaction under
Yeah.
my belt. It's one more rep that makes me even better at what I do.
It's kind of like when I do photos and stuff. When I first started doing photos and whatever, some people, like when we were setting this up, was like, let me make sure I don't look orange and look like Oompa Loompas or something. When I first started doing that stuff, people were like, hey, can you do my newborn shoot? And I'm like, oh my God. I got to take photos of a newborn baby. So I started Googling it and I'm looking. And then I'm like, how do people do this? The baby's smiling. It's got to be fake. Got to be fake. But no, there's like an art to it. And I still don't know how to do it, but I did it a couple of times. You have to make the baby really warm. You have to, there's these certain, you have to just have them fed. They were just burped. And you can like literally mold them to make them look like they're smiling. They're out and you can just be like, and it stays there. I'm like, oh my God, I try to take a picture. But I would never know that unless somebody like, you just got to do it. That's why I think somebody like yourself, like from 20 up, you've just been grinding at that. You just been jumping out of the dang plane and building stuff, and you're like, hey, you met her, and you're like, I found out what I like now because she had me do all this stuff.
Yep.
I like these. I'm good at these things, and I enjoy it.
Yep.
So that's really cool. I appreciate y'all. Yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna say one of the unique parts about like our relationship too is I grew up in a very like Dave Ramsey type household of, you pay everything cash and you don't get loans. And my brother is still that way. And I met her and she is the exact opposite. She's like,
healthy way.
Oh, man.
no, I don't even know. She's like, if you got it, leverage it.
Well, I just.
You can't take it with you. Get it.
Oh,
this is awesome.
Not quite.
He was like, I'd like a couple more campers, rent at least. She's like, I'm trying to buy some apartment complexes,
I think that there's a wise way. I don't consumer debt. Horrible idea. Don't ever do that. I do think that there is a wise way to use relationships with banks in order to grow your personal wealth. And I think that there is some additional due diligence that needs to come along with that. But there are so many tools. I see you smiling. There are so many tools as it relates to real estate specifically. This does not, again, does not apply to credit cards,
motorcycle, cameras, none of that stuff.
But there are some really great ways to buy real estate. Yes, mortgaging, using leverage and debt. Again, smart. I cannot say that enough times. But so that you can actually grow your family's wealth. And at the end of the day, that's really what it's all about. So, yes, that's true.
Dave Ramsey is staying out of this. It's like, yep, you're right. I got it. That's okay. That's really cool. Yeah. I've learned that the hard way. I think I've became a lot smarter with money and just through trial and error. And I'm like, man, if you really sit down, people don't realize credit cards and stuff, when they do that, they're like, this credit card's going to be 20% interest rate. And you're like, whatever, I'll pay it off. It don't matter. I'll pay it before all that interest.
Yeah.
But when you add that up, you're like, I didn't forget when I was 18, 19 something. Remember, Rent-A-Center in those places? Mm-hmm. Got an apartment, did whatever, and I went and got one of the big flat screen TVs when they first were a thing. Mm. And the ones now are this thin. Yep. This bad boy was this, and it was still flat screen. And I think it was, $3,000, whatever they were when they came out. I had to make payments on it. By the time I paid that thing off, when I look back and I added all that up, I probably paid $12,000 for that TV. Mm. I still got that thing. Crazy. I just don't want to get rid of it because of principle.
Yep.
Because I have people like, man, I'll give you $200 for that TV. You don't even use it. I'm like, no, I paid $12,000 on it with interest. So
but
yes, so with those things,
Okay, the Florida house, great example, right? So that house was for sale by owner for a very long time.
The beach house you have, you can book it. Mm-hmm. So if you go to your Instagram, you can still book that.
Yes, on my little link tree, you can book it. So that house, it's right on the water. It has private beach access. It was on for sale by owner, I think for over a year. And I'm happy to disclose this. So we bought it for $340,000. Yep. Except because of a bank relationship, we decided to refinance it, do a cash out refinance, mm-hmm. which what that means is they're going to go and tell you how much the house is worth. They're going to hold back 20% of the value, and then you get the rest in cash. So whenever they came to do the appraisal, it was worth $505,000, but I paid $340,000.
Good Lord.
Yeah. So we were able to pull out 80% of $505,000, yep. and we used that money for the renovation. And there are ways like that you can do things that really are a smart way. But again, we bought that house for $150,000 less than what it's worth. Yep. We had really great equity in it. And so there's some little tips and tricks like that.
So I say a lot of people don't know that type of stuff at all.
I just pretend I know what she's talking about. I say, okay.
Okay, good idea. We got money to buy some stuff to make cabinets. Got it.
Just tell me what I can work on and how much I can spend. Okay.
Yeah.
I briefly had looked at that beach house. It looks really good. Y'all did all that yourself, right? In the
cabinetry, everything.
Man, that's innocent. What'd you say, Florida?
Yeah, it's.
Right?
I try to claim Rosemary Beach, but it's really and truly it's between Panama City Beach and Rosemary Beach.
Who cares? It's the beach.
Yes, it's on the water.
It's ready to go.
That's really cool. Yeah. And you said it's beachfront.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Man. It has its own little private
I'm about to schedule a call with you on Instagram, trying to figure out how to do that. Yeah. But I'm not going to rent that thing out. I want it for myself. That's the problem.
And I do have it Calendly on my Instagram, so you can select times.
That's really cool. How long has that been up for rental?
Maybe a month.
Really? So that
maybe
thing's
a little
fresh.
Bit less.
Mm-hmm.
Man, that's cool. And
Yeah.
spring's coming, summer's coming.
Yeah.
But if it's in Florida, what's the weather like there most of the time? I have a buddy that lives down there, and whenever we get snow up here or something, or ice, I should say,
Yeah.
he's like, yep, back at home, y'all got ice. He's like, I'm wearing flip-flops and a tank top. I'm like,
Sitting on the
God, I
beach.
hate you. This is not fair. So you probably, a spot like that would probably just going to rent out a lot more
Yeah.
than somewhere where you only got a few summer months.
Yeah.
Yeah, the water's a bit brisk.
This time of year.
But
Yeah.
also talking about, that's one of the ways that you really can hedge your risk
Yeah.
with real estate. So like you can have a house in Florida which has certain seasonality to it, and that's why it's always wise to have something like a ski lodge, because that seasonality might look a little bit different.
Yeah.
And so that's how you can really vary your portfolio. People might freak out and be like, oh gosh, should I really own multiple investment properties? Shouldn't I diversify by having more stocks? Which the answer is always yes too. Like definitely do that. But you can even diversify your real estate portfolio by owning different kinds of assets.
I won't say where we're looking, but this particular place has, it's adjacent to a national park and ski slopes. So national park in the summer, ski slopes in the winter, so you're going to get rentals all year long.
Yeah.
So
That's
great way to
really
think
cool.
about it. Yep.
Well, I appreciate y'all coming today. I think I'm going to have to hook up with y'all to figure out how to, maybe me and Derek will meet with y'all to figure out how to do our arbitrage. I just
love
can't
that.
believe that y'all did it right there in Charlotte, like in
Yeah.
Plaza Midwood.
Yeah, before
That's
arbitrage was
nuts.
really a thing.
That's what I'm saying. How,
Yeah.
Before we close this out, how did you even, when you went to do that Airbnb, the arbitrage, how did you even know that that was a thing? Did somebody tell you, hey, you should look at subleasing that? Or did...
I think that I just love trying new things.
Yeah.
And I'm very creative, and I don't take
You kinda
no
thought of it
for
on
an
your own,
answer, to
maybe?
be
Yeah.
honest. Yeah. So I knew it was something that we wanted to do. At the time, there wasn't really anything palatable to buy, nor was I also like in that moment ready to buy
Yeah.
something like that. And so, but I wanted to do it. So
Yeah.
you just have to find a way.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what happened. Yeah, honestly.
I think you were really just trying to cover your rent, and we ended up making
Yeah.
good money off
That's
that.
what I'm saying. So at the current place you were living, whatever, or the place you were living at that time, you did that arbitrage, and you're like, hey, man, got a lot of bills coming. Wonder if we can sublease this out to cover some of our bills, and that you just kind of thought of it that way, right?
Yeah.
It wasn't like, so I'm saying, Airbnb arbitrage wasn't really a thing. You might have almost started it by doing that.
Yeah. So we actually.
Airbnb's like, she's on to something.
Okay. Full story.
See, every time somebody does that, you get a kickback from Airbnb. Now I get it.
I rented a place, and my car kept getting broken into. This is like the
Oh,
full story.
gosh.
Okay. Rented the cutest little 1-bedroom apartment. I still love that place. It was
Yeah.
so precious. But my car kept getting broken into, and I wanted out of the lease because I'm like, yo, this is not safe.
Yeah.
And I keep getting late to
Gated
work.
parking deck
What?
coming in every day.
Yeah, or sometimes the other thing, I don't know if you remember this, but we had to have like a key fob or like a little tag saying, and my car would still get towed, and he would be like, I didn't see your tag. And get this, at the
And
time.
you have a tag on it.
Yes, so I'm living in Plaza Midwood, still coming to Vitality because I'm
Yeah.
obsessed with this place. I love it.
Yeah.
And I'm like going to the 5 a.m. So I'm like marching my little hiney out to my
And there's no
luxury
car.
apartment deck. Yeah, and then I have to tell Steve, oh, I'm late because someone towed my car. He don't care.
He does
you can't
not
be late to
care.
Steve's class.
No.
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 And it would always happen on Wednesdays when he's coaching the 5 a.m. Anyways, this whole thing. So I'm like, I've got to get out of this place.
Oh my gosh.
And so I asked them, hey, can I get out of my lease? And they said, no, ma'am. And I was like, well, can I rent it out on Airbnb? And that's,
They don't care as long as they.
well, at the time they said no, but I did it. You
Oh.
actually cut that part out.
All right, so you did illegal arbitrage. I like it. Okay, so
Well,
don't
no,
do that.
eventually
But that's
they
how you
ended
got
up-
started.
Yeah, and eventually they did end up agreeing, like I said, because I was like, okay,
Yeah.
I'll put in a leasing packet. It'll be a funnel
Yeah.
for the property manager.
Like
'cause-
you said, eventually people
Yeah.
are like, I really like this. I'm going to stay here.
Yeah, and it
You
really
just
did
didn't
work out
put
that
in the
way.
Airbnb listing, could
Your car might
get
get
your
broken
car
into.
towed, even if you have a tag. Okay, cool.
Remove your firearms from the vehicle.
Oh my gosh. I used to live uptown. It was interesting. I had a similar thing. The place I lived at was luxury, but the parking deck was secure. You had to have a fob to get in and out of it. Even though you could see out to see uptown and whatever, they have these big, like, I don't know even what you call it. It's kind of like lattice, but it's metal, whatever, all around it. So you can't get in and out. I come out of my car one morning, about to go to work, and I'm like, did I leave my window down?
Oh, no.
I'm like, well, I'm glad I'm in a parking deck. I don't know what it must have been a bad day at work yesterday. And I go up, and I'm like, nope, it's broke. And I look, they had took everything in there. I mean, they took pennies, like everything that I had in there. And I was like, this is a luxury place. How did this happen? But yeah, I had the same experience.
Secured parking.
Yeah, I'm like, what is this? There are cameras, all this stuff, and somebody still did it.
Yeah.
So I feel your pain, but I didn't think to sublease it out. I should have did that. So I appreciate y'all coming today. It's really cool. Maybe we'll have you back and see what happens the next X amount of months, year, or whatever, and see like, hey, we got our ski lodge thing going on now. We got 6 properties, and we'll have to really time this out to where you're in town at whatever house you have here.
That'd be so
That would be really cool.
fun. Yeah, and you better have one by then, too.
Oh, my gosh. I don't know. I might. I don't know if I'll have one or not. Hopefully, if I get my property built or my house built, I get some custom cabinets, a little panic room, I'll call it, or something.
We'll hide it.
Yeah, that's fine. I appreciate it. It's been good.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks.
Cool. Thank you.